Hello and welcome to Math Lessons with Linda. Today's topic is solving quadratic equations using the AC method of factoring. I do have a previous video on this, but it's been very requested. I'm going to present with you another example of this method today. Here's our equation. 6x squared plus 11x minus 10 equals 0. What makes this problem different from others is that we have a coefficient for the a value that's bigger than 1. And when that happens, it's typically easier to use what's called the AC method to factor. So I'm going to go through the steps of how to do this with you today. The first thing we're going to do is take this a value and we're going to multiply it by our c value. Remember, we get the a, the b, and the c from the coefficients in our equation. So over here, I'm going to make my setup where I take the product of 6 and negative 10. So I get negative 60. I need to have factors that make a product of that. And then down here, what I'm looking for are the same factors that give me the product of negative 60, but add up to 11x. So what this tells me is that there are a lot of different choices for 60. So I'm going to eliminate going through all of them with you today just so we can do the steps. And we're going to use 15 times 4. So 15 times 4 gives me the 60, but now I need to worry about my signs because I need a negative 60. So one of these has to be a negative, but I also need to end up with a positive 11 when I add these together. So since my addition needs to be the positive, that tells me 15 has to be the positive and 4 has to be the negative. So these are the factors I'm going to use. So when I go back and put these into my original problem, I'm going to keep my 6x squared. And now what we're doing, and this is the critical part, is instead of writing 11x, I'm going to change that into these two terms. So a plus 15x and a minus 4x. So just these two terms have come from the 11x. I've just rewritten it a different way that's going to make it easier to solve. I keep my minus 10 and my equals 0. So now I've got 4 terms here. And what I'm going to do is use grouping. So I'm going to group these first two, and I'm going to group these last two. And for each of these, I'm going to look for a GCF. So in my first two terms, I can definitely factor out a 3 and an x. What's left is a 2x for the first term and a plus 5 for the second term. Okay, so this is done. Now these two terms, I think since the first term is a negative, that's a good indication that I should factor out a negative and then whatever the rest of my GCF would be. In this case, I can only factor out a 2 in addition to that. When I factor out a negative, that will flip all of the signs. So I will now have a positive 2x left. This negative also turns into a positive 5. Now, you've gone through the hardest part of the problem. Now what we're going to do is we're going to notice we've got 2x plus 5 in each of these groupings. That is my new GCF that I'm going to factor out. So I take the 2x plus 5 out of each of these. And then what's left is the 3x and the minus 2. So now I have my quadratic completely factored, and I'm going to use my product property for quadratics and take each of these and set them equal to 0. And when I solve these, I'll have my solutions. So my first solution is going to be negative 5 over 2. My other solution is going to be positive 2/3. Remember, in quadratics, you should get 2 answers. Sometimes they might be the same answer, but you should still get 2 solutions for your problem. And this is how you solve a quadratic equation using the AC method.